Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing 12 Angry Men. So 12 Angry Men came out in 1957 and was directed by Sidney Lumet, and this film really focuses on a jury after a trial has just happened. So at the start of the film we see the end of a trial taking place where an 18-year-old boy is trialed for murder. Then these 12 men, they go into this room at the back, and these 12 men are members of the jury, and they have to discuss whether they think the boy is guilty or not guilty, and their decision has to be unanimous, so all of them have to agree on it. All of them have to agree that he's either not guilty or guilty, so they do a count at the start to see what everybody thinks, and all of them think the boy is guilty except for one guy, juror number 8, who is played by Henry Fonda, who thinks that he is not guilty. So this whole film is really based on the concept of innocent until proven guilty and focusing on the value of human life. So Henry Fonda's character at the start, he actually says he doesn't know whether the boy is guilty or not guilty. He just thinks that because if the boy is found guilty, he's going to be put to death. He's going to go to the electric chair. He thinks that, because this boy's life hangs in the balance, they should at least talk about it for a few minutes before actually coming to a decision. And throughout this film, we basically see Henry Fonda trying to convince the other guys in the room that this boy is not guilty instead of guilty. So one of the fantastic things about this film is that really 90% of the film is actually just shot in this one room. And you might be thinking, well, that doesn't really sound like a very interesting film. And in a way, you would be right. It doesn't sound like an interesting film, but it's amazing how well this film can hold your attention and just what a fantastic piece of cinema it is. So when this film came out, 1957, audiences were really expecting films in Technicolor. They were expecting films in widescreen on a big epic scale. Then you had this film, which is in black and white and just shot in this dark, claustrophobic film. Now, this film didn't actually do very well at the box office, probably because of those reasons, but it was nominated for 3 Oscars, Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Unfortunately, it actually lost all 3 of those to Bridge on the River Kwai, which is a much more epic film on a much larger scale. This film is a lot more driven, it's a lot more focused, and it's a lot more of a character film. See, all 12 of these characters, they all view the case in a very different way. So Henry Fonda, he kind of takes a side that, we shouldn't really say he's guilty unless all the evidence points to this and it can be proven that he is guilty. And then we get some other characters. We get juror number 4, who is quite an interesting character, and he is quite similar to Henry Fonda's character in a way. He sort of sees the case as a bit of a puzzle, and he's trying to fit all the clues together and try and sort of sort things out logically. Then we get juror number 3, who's played by Lee J. Cobb, and he's probably the angriest of the bunch in a way, because he's sort of very determined that the boy is guilty no matter what, and seems 100% certain of it. What is interesting about these characters is that some of them think certain decisions, they might think the boy is guilty, but they don't all necessarily think the boy is guilty for the same reasons. So some of them may think that the boy is guilty because he looks a bit dodgy. Basically, he's a teenager, and those sorts of kids are bound to do those kind of things. Some of them just think all the evidence points that way. And it's just interesting to see how people view the case in different ways. One of the more interesting characters is actually juror number 10, who is a bit of an older guy who is obviously very prejudiced against the boy because of his ethnicity. Now, the boy's ethnicity is never really explicitly stated. However, we do see the boy very briefly at the start of the film, and it's quite obvious that he's not of white European descent. He's obviously of some other ethnicity. And for that reason, juror number 10 obviously clearly feels prejudiced against him, and maybe just is saying that he's guilty because of his skin colour. It's sort of implied eventually throughout the film. Then eventually we do clearly see that this is how he feels. I found this film very entertaining actually. It's surprising how entertaining a film can be when it's just shot in one room and it's just 12 men talking basically. It doesn't sound like the most exciting film, but it is really enticing, and it really draws you in, and you really want to see where these conversations are going, because each character has something different to say, and they've all got different roles, they all have different jobs, and they all view the case differently. They all have something different to add. And what is very interesting is that because the film starts towards the end of the court case, we actually don't know very much about the murder, about exactly what happens. So we only learn stuff about the case from when a character says it. So a character will say something about one of a knife that was found at the scene, or they'll say about certain clues or the location, and they'll talk about witnesses, about who saw the murder, who heard something, who saw something dodgy taking place. And each time a character says something, we as the audience are learning something new about the case, and we're also trying to put the things together and trying to work out exactly what might have happened. Although this film really portrays Henry Fonda as being the good guy of the film, and it's quite obvious the film wants us to take his side with things, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of the other characters are bad. They're just perhaps viewing the case differently and just seeing it in a different way than Henry Fonda does. And that's what's really important about this film, is that although these guys have all seen the same case, they've all spotted different things, or they all see things in different way, or they all view the case differently. But this film isn't necessarily focused on trying to work out whether the boy is guilty or isn't guilty. It's actually just more focused about the burden of proof, and really just focusing on whether it can be definitely 100% proven that the boy is guilty. Because, as I said earlier, this boy's life really hangs in the balance. So if they get it wrong and is put to death, well then there's obviously no going back from that. So overall, I think this is a fantastic film. I really think it is probably one of the greatest films I've ever seen. And I think it has aged very well actually. Bear in mind, this film did come out in 1957, so obviously certain aspects of it are going to be quite dated. However, most of the things they say, it could be just as relevant today, to be honest. So for that reason, I'm going to give 12 Angry Men a rating of 10 out of 10. I think it's definitely a film which is worth checking out. If you don't like black and white films, then this is probably one of the best black and white films to see. So there we go. So that is 12 Angry Men. So what do you guys think? Have you seen 12 Angry Men? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Please let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.